Hey guys, we are up for some more book recommendations. This time's theme, recent spooky reads. Hey guys, if you are new, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. Despite no spooky wear or spooky shirt, I am still being festive. I've got the Jack Skellington leggings on, so there is still carrying on with the spooky themes here, which brings us to today's video, which is some of my more recent spooky reads. This is basically books that have an all-around spooky feel to them. They can have supernatural creatures in them, a variety of supernatural creatures. It can be like murder mystery, just anything that gives you an all-around just spooky kind of feel to it. So without further ado, let's get started. Up first, of course, my more recent series that I've been dabbling in, and that is the Zodiac Academy. I'm just going to hold up the first book because these books are chunky and heavy. Zodiac Academy features a set of twins, Darcy and Tori, who grow up in the foster care system in the real world. They are discovered upon their 18th birthday by their caretaker. I don't really know what to call him, but he's a teacher from Zodiac Academy who is sent to come and bring them back because they did not know that they are basically the two surviving twin daughters of the previous king of Solaris, which is the kingdom of pretty much any supernatural creature you can imagine. They are set to inherit the throne as well as inherit quite a bit of wealth. The two sisters have no interest in claiming the throne, but however, the money would set them up to be able to live a comfortable life when they have not known that type of comfort at all in their life. However, standing in their way of meeting the goal of graduating from Zodiac Academy to inherit their claims is the four kings of the school. These are the four heartthrob bully types that are descendants of the four kind of ruling families right now. And they do not like the fact that all that power can be taken away from them by these two girls who know nothing about their world. So there's a lot of bullying, some romance. It's being said it's kind of like a reverse harem with the two girls at the center. I really enjoyed it. I did start reading. I found out that there was kind of a prequel series that takes place in a different part of Solaris called I think it's the Ruthless Fae series. Loving that series. I wanted to segue from this and get into that series just because, like I said, it's supposed to happen, I think, 5 years or so before Darcy and Tori go to Zodiac Academy. So I highly recommend this. You have all sorts. You have magic. You have dragon shifters, werewolf shifters, sirens, unicorns, Pegasus, Cyclops. I mean, anything you can think of is pretty much attending this school. So that's one for a supernatural read. Second up, we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Costin. This is kind of like a Hallmark Halloween spooky romance with just a tiny bit of spice in there. Definitely probably one of your cozier spooky reads. Basically, you have Florence, who is kind of a ghostwriter for her favorite author who would write all these romance books. So she has kind of taken up ghostwriting and basically writing these stories. So she ends up getting a new editor who's wanting to meet with her because she's having a bit of writer's block and she hasn't come up with the new story yet. So she goes to meet her new editor who is, very swoon worthy and everything. And he puts the deadline on her, but she also gets a bit of sad news, which is that her father, who runs the funeral home back in the small town where she grew up, has passed away and she needs to go home to help out the family sort through that. So what ends up happening is she goes back there and at her father's funeral, she sees her editor and she doesn't understand why her editor would take the time to come out and, be in support or kind of like try to bully her a little bit more about the deadline. Only she realizes that he's not exactly alive. And so it's basically the story of how she's trying to cope with her family stuff, how she's trying to figure out how the editor passed away and kind of solve that mystery to help him cross over, and just maybe that while they're doing that, they're starting to fall for each other, and maybe she doesn't really want him to cross over after all. So it's just a very cute, spooky kind of romance. Like I said, twist of little spice in there. Very sweet with the way that her family is, and the stories that they have about being kids growing up in a funeral home, because that's, not something you normally see. But I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend this for another little cozy, spooky read. Next up, I'm only going to hold up the first book because it's the only one I have. The other ones I've read in ebook, and this is part of a trilogy, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is really, really good. I really liked the way that it was written. Basically, you have a young girl who is trying to solve a murder case that happened a long time ago, and she doesn't believe that the suspect that they said committed the murders really did it. So she's trying to do an investigation into the cold case. And in here, the way that it's written, you have her story, but you also have her trying to do like interviews and things. So you have the interview transcripts, you have I think she's trying to start a podcast. I don't know if it's this book that starts the podcast or the second one, but she's trying to do kind of like a social media campaign about the case. And so it's just really interesting in the way that it's presented to you, because it's presented to you as if you're sometimes reading through these transcripts, these interviews. You're getting to see some of the evidence, photos, and so you almost feel like you're a part of solving the crime as well. So I really liked the way that it was done. Very kind of Nancy Drew-ish, if you will, but just a little bit, I want to say just a little bit darker, because usually Nancy Drew from like the 60s books was a little bit lighthearted because of the time in which they were written. But very good series. I still have to read the last final book, and I think there's like a little novella, but I've read the first two books, absolutely loved them, highly recommend them. Anytime you want to do a little sleuthing, some murder mystery, it's your spooky vibes for that. Up next, we have a classic, and that is the collection of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Of course, this, as much as it could be a fairy tale, there's a reason why it's Grimm's fairy tales. A lot of these fairy tales are grim. They are very kind of spooky, very kind of dark, meant to teach you, lessons of survival and following the rules. But basically, this was gifted to me by my mother-in-law. This is it says it's the Fall River edition. And it basically has illustrations, and it has pages after pages of all of the Grimm's fairy tales, the Frog King, the Golden Key, Tom Thumb, Rapunzel, let's see, the Lambkin and the Little Fish, like some I've never heard of before. I've read obviously some of the more famous ones like Rapunzel and Snow White and Hansel and Gretel and those kind of ones. So I'm curious to see what the other ones are, and hopefully this will steer it more towards like the spookier kind of realistic, not toned down versions of the fairy tales. But yes, I highly recommend the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Like I said, realistically, they're actually very spooky. So what Halloween would not be complete without pirates? I know pirates can be more fantasy, more adventure, but who hasn't dressed up as a pirate for Halloween? I mean, you've done it at least once. So with that being said, I am recommending the Crossbones series. I have the first two books. The third book has yet to come out as far as I know. But this is a book series written by Kimberly Vale, and I'm going to put this one, the second one, down and just concentrate on the first ones, even though sadly, Let's Take Over, they have some really awesome covers. I mean, those are kind of cool and spooky in themselves. Basically, you have a world where magic reigns, gods are abound, although they might be a little bit more on the silent side. And you have the pirate king who has passed away. I know this almost sounds like a One Piece thing, but it's not. And you have the Pirate King that has passed away, and because he has no presumed heirs, there's kind of a battle for the throne. And what that means is that there's going to be a competition where any pirate who wants to toss his hat into the ring to be given the title or earn the title of Pirate King will have to go to this certain island where there is all sorts of magic and mayhem, survive, find the pirate crown, which is made out of bones, and get the power of being king. So you have all sorts of pirates, you know, the older pirates, and then you have some of the younger pirates that are trying to make a name for themselves. There is a pirate female that is part of an all-female pirate crew. There are some younger male pirates. One's more of like a prankster. The other one's a little bit more serious. But unbeknownst to them is that on the other side of the pirate islands, if you will, there is a young girl who is the descendant of the Pirate King who has just passed away. She has magic. She has no idea about who her father is or about who she is. And when pirates set out who actually do know who she is in order to end her life, her mother goes to protect her. Her mother passes away trying to protect her. And now the young girl is on the run. She stows away onto a pirate ship because she knows something has to deal with the pirates and she needs to sort it out. So you have all this kind of going on in the mix, and there's a lot of mystical elements to it, a lot of great folklore, great kind of creatures that you get into when they start doing the island. And then that kind of continues into the second book where you get a little bit more into like the god worlds and the shadow realms and things that exist within this world. But it is about pirates at the core. And like I said, it was a lot of fun. I told my husband when I read this one that I felt like this was like the show Black Sails, but like for a YA audience. So with that in mind, highly recommend these as a pirate spooky read for the season. Next up, once again, I'm going to hold up the first book in the trilogy, although I do own all 3 books. And this is a little bit for your murder mystery mayhem. That is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I really loved this. If you like books where there is mystery, secret passages, puzzles to solve, crimes to solve, truth to be gotten, all while focused on sort of love triangle, reverse harem type of thing, then this is going to be the book for you. Basically, you have Avery, who is a young girl who is being raised by her half-sister. And she finds out that she is set to inherit billions from a complete stranger. She has no idea why she is set to inherit it. Her only requirement in order to inherit is that she needs to go to the family estate and live there for a full year. Once that full year is up and she turns, I believe it's 18, she will inherit all the money. The only problem is that the surviving grandsons and other children of the man who passed away, they don't really like the fact that a complete stranger has somehow inherited what should be theirs. So there's a little bit of the enemies to lovers going on. While she's at the mansion, there are puzzles, there are secret passageways, and there is a game to be solved, which will reveal all the reasons of why she is set to inherit, who the mysterious missing son is, and many, many more mysteries that you end up starting in these books. I preferred the first one over all 3. I felt like they started to decline a little bit. However, it was a really good series and I loved the puzzles involved with this. So that's why it kind of fits to me, those murder mysteries with all those secret things in there. So that's why I'm putting that in. Now, I did mention with, I think it was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, that it gave me some Nancy Drew vibes. So, of course, I'm going to throw in a Nancy Drew. Please ignore the sticker. This is Nancy Drew, The Curse by Michael Osso. This is basically a prequel to the new Nancy Drew series that was put out on CW a few years back. It's a very, very short read. And this is just basically about there's a festival going on in town, and just some weird things start happening, and they think there might be a curse on the town. So Nancy Drew sets in to try to solve, what is this curse? Is it real? Who's behind all the things that are going on? And like I said, it gives way into, I think there's some cultish things that are going on in there. And it starts the prequel, like kind of history. There is a little spoiler teaser in there for what starts to happen in the TV series, which was really fun. But it is its own story separate from the TV series. So it was really good. It was nice to see an upgrade over the 60s Nancy Drew books, although it's been a long time since I read those, so it would be kind of fun to maybe pick those up in the future. But once again, spooky solving crime over here. Next, I have the Den of Shadows Quartet by Amelia Atwater Rhodes. This was a book that, it's a much older book than some of the other ones. This came out when I was in high school many years ago, and it was written by a girl who was a teenager at the same time. And this is kind of the bind up of her 4 books. You had In the Forest of the Night, Demon in My View, Shattered Mirror, and Midnight Predator. These all have to do with like shifters and vampires and romance and your traditional like pre-Twilight, romances here. Very easy to read, very well done. I think she uses In the Forest of the Night. She tends to use some poetry in the beginning for inspiration for the story, and you can see how that interplays into the story. It's been a while since I've read these, but I just remember them being very good, so I had picked this up again to reread them. But you have In the Forest of the Night, where you have 300 years ago, Rasika was human. Now she is a vampire, a powerful one, and her past has come back to torment her. You have Demon in My View, which is Jessica isn't your average high school student. She's an acclaimed author of vampire fiction. Now 2 students at her high school strongly remind her of her favorite characters, but those characters only live in her imagination, right? Shattered Mirror is Christopher Ravenna and Sarah Vita may look like normal high school couple, but he's actually a vampire who's sworn off human blood, and she's an incredibly powerful vampire hunting witch. His past and her future collide when they get tangled up with Nicholas, one of the most reviled vampires ever. And Midnight Predator is once a happy teenager, Turquoise Draka is now a vampire hunter. Her current assignment is to assassinate Jessica, one of the cruelest vampires in history. But to do that, she'll have to enter Midnight, a fabled vampire realm, as a human slave. So, like I said, all big things about vampires. Lots of spooky rides. YA, I remember being very, very good. So recommend this one. And we're going to take a little bit of a dive back into the classics because it's spooky season and we need a little bit of Sleepy Hollow here. So we have The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Stories by Washington Irvine. This is kind of the classic Arcturus, like, I don't know, it's almost like a comic-y, old cover for me. But basically you have The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is the story of Ichabod Crane, who is sent to Sleepy Hollow to be a school teacher, and he's very gullible and kind of a wuss, and he's kind of bullied about by Brom, and Brom kind of tells him all these stories about the Headless Horseman that shows up on Halloween, and lo and behold, the real Headless Horseman shows up. It's a very short story. I think it's only I think it might be 100 pages. Yeah, it's 100 pages, and then you have the rest of his spooky reads, but obviously a classic Halloween tale with the Headless Horseman. And for our final pick, it's actually, I'm just gonna hold this up because it represents the entire world that this author has created. And that, of course, is the Shadowhunter Realms by Cassandra Clare. This is the Mortal Instruments paperback box set. I have yet to read yet. I've been working on the prequel ones because you know me and I gotta read in chronological order. But I will get to this baby at some point. But you have the Shadowhunter Realm, which you have our mortal realms, and then you have the Shadowhunter Realm. And the Shadowhunters are descendants of angelic beings who inherit the powers to kind of govern the Shadow Realm or the Shadow World, in which you have vampires, witches, goblins, ghouls, ghosties, everything of the paranormal sort. They are kind of the police officers in charge of this, and it's just the different adventures against evil that are trying to rise up throughout the different generations. You have the Dark Artifices series, which I read and absolutely loved it. I think like every book was a 5-star. There might have been one 4-star, but I mean, it's a really great series. I love the way that Cassandra Clare just kind of really creates this realistic world, as well as the love triangles that seem to pair up. She also gives a lot of depth and background to like a variety of characters, because it's not just, you have a few main characters that stick out, but there's a lot of other characters that are just absolutely amazing. So even though I haven't read this one, I have read some of the prequel series, hoping to get to this one because I really am hooked on this world. Like I said, it's amazing. And I think that there's even supposed to be a new book series or something that she's coming out with next year. So highly recommend anything in Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter world. With that being said, those are some of the more spooky reads that I have been reading recently, or that I plan to get to in the near future, or have read in the past and want to reread. I know that there are so many other ones. These are the ones that I happen to have sitting on my shelves to share with you. So if you have some other suggestions, please do not hesitate to put them in the comments below. If there are some of these that stood out to you as your favorites, pay them some attention down below. I hope all you guys are doing well, staying warm and healthy this spooky season. And I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.